The Pre-Med Year, session number 320. Hello and welcome to the 3-time Academy Award-nominated podcast, The Pre-Med Years, where we believe that collaboration, not competition, is key to your success. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Gray, and in this podcast, we share with you stories, encouragement, and information that you need to know to help guide you on your path to becoming a physician. All right, welcome to the Pre-Med Years. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, your host here every week for free, where I give you the best information available online for you to succeed as a pre-med student. I don't charge you anything for that advice. Now, how do I support myself? Well, there are some ways that I support myself. I work with students one-on-one, so if that's something you're interested in looking at, go ahead and go to medicalschoolhq.net, and you can see those options there. I'm doing less one-on-one work and more group work. We have a great video course about the personal statement. We have one coming up for the medical school interview, where you get access to many hours of video content and then access to a secret Facebook group where we'll do some live office hours as well. You can use my coupon codes that I have for Next Step Test Prep, for Princeton Review, for MedQuest, and lots of other products. If there's something out there you're thinking about buying, reach out to me and see if I have a coupon code for you. There are lots of ways to support me. One of the best ways, again, is just to spread awareness of this podcast. So enough about me and the podcast. Let's dive into our guest today, a former special operations medic who decided he wanted to go to medical school and his path there. We'll talk all about his path, his struggles, his successes, and everything that has come along the way. Justin, welcome to the Pre-Med Years. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
When did you first realize you wanted to be a physician?
Probably while I was training as a medic in special operations.
What was it about training as a medic that was like, hey, this is cool what I'm doing. I might as well be a doctor. Like, what went through your mind?
I was really fascinated by and found success in the sciences, the anatomy and physiology and the didactics. And in addition to that, I really loved just the hands-on portion and just being able to affect change immediately there with, bare bone resources. So are you saying that you liked science and you wanted to help people? Because that's what it sounds like you're telling me. Oh man, I got suckered into that one, didn't I?
So what led you into special operations, which ultimately led to being a medic, and then obviously having this kind of career change pivot in your mind? What were you doing before joining the military?
Well, I had just recently finished a 4-year degree, and this is back during the financial crisis, and graduating at that time with a business degree did not bode well for job prospects. But anyways, I was always going to join the military and try out for a special operations unit, and that was always the plan. And my parents stopped me right out of high school from doing that. And
why?
They had me. Well, they just wanted me to consider the implications. So they had me sit down with a family friend who was a retired special operations colonel guy, and we went to lunch, and he really explained to me just the importance of having a backup plan and how you can't really plan for everything, and you always have to have a backup plan just in case. And so that's what I did. I went and I got a business degree, and then I tried out for a special operations unit.
And you made it.
I made it.
How does one, as you're entering special operations, you were selected to train to become a medic. How did that process work? Did you go out and say, I want to do this, or was it test scores that led you down this path?
There are a series of tests, academic tests, as well as physical endeavors that you have to overcome. And at the end of it, they give you a choice. pretty much. And with your test scores, they kind of give you, hey, we think you'd be good for this. We'd like to steer you towards this. And they said, hey, your test scores are pretty good. We think you'd excel in this area. And that was the medic area. And that's what I chose.
So you're in your training and you have this mini epiphany, like, oh wow, like I went to school for business, but I think this medical thing is kind of cool. Did you like go, hey guys, I don't think I want to be a medic anymore. I want to go back to school to become a physician. Did you like try to get out of your commitment at all to jump start your doctor career?
No. Going through training and then serving abroad, it didn't really come to my attention that I was going to be a doctor. Like that's the path that I wanted to set out on. So I had always had a commitment to my service, and I didn't really try to get out of my commitment. If anything, there was a chance I may have stayed in if other situations hadn't happened.
You said that you weren't necessarily sure you wanted to be a doctor, but in the beginning you said that was kind of when you realized, was your medic training when you realized you wanted to be a doctor. What was it that really solidified in your mind that at some point in the future you wanted to go to medical school?
It wasn't until I eventually started seeing patients and actually treating people and having gained experience and confidence in my abilities that it really crystallized that being a doctor was the path I wanted to eventually go out on.
And you're in an interesting situation for the civilian listening to this who might not know. As a medic in special operations, there are certain situations where you're in where you basically are the doctor without the doctor training. Obviously, through medic school, you get a lot of training, but you're, in a lot of situations, the only person there treating somebody, trying to save somebody, treating them, diagnosing them. What was that like going through that process, going, like, I'm the man right now. Like, I don't need to go to medical school. I'm doing it now.
It's surreal, but at the same time, you're constantly aware of your limitations and what you can and cannot bring to the table to help the person in front of you. So it's a fantastic opportunity, and I'm really grateful for it. But at the same time, you're just frustrated the whole time because you're constantly aware of your limitations, and you're always staying in contact with the physician who's overseeing your medical situation wherever you are. So that's really the big thing. I always had a good relationship with the physician that oversaw my capabilities and my scope.
What's like the coolest thing you were able to do as a medic in special operations? I'd
probably have to say that out on missions and you're able to help guys that get hurt. You're there for them when they get hurt, and you're able to make sure that they make it back to some place that can provide a higher level of care and just be there for them. It's pretty powerful for me, at least.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of pinnacle of a patient-physician, in air quotes, relationship of somebody who immediately needs your help. And you're there to do that in such an environment. So that's got to be an amazing feeling for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm really fortunate in that. I was always able to provide this medical capability for the unit that I was out conducting operations with. I mean, I was always there for them, and it paid off.
Yeah. You are seeing patients as a medic. You think that maybe you want more education, you want to go to medical school, become a physician, maybe a PA, whatever it may be, but you're in the military, you're committed to them, you have however many years on your contract, your commitment with the military. What is that like to know that you want more education, you want to go back to school, but you're handcuffed really to get that education that you want and need to move forward?
Well, you just find a way to make it happen. So I was still active duty, but there were still things I could do while I was active duty before I had the opportunity to completely separate and become a civilian. So, for example, I made it known to my command of my intentions near the end of my enlistment, and they supported me and supported my endeavors, and we just made it happen. And I took some classes at night here and there, and I had some very supportive teachers who were aware of my scheduling and my priorities, especially to the mission, and everybody just worked with me, and we just made it happen.
How did you know what you needed to do once you made the decision? Okay, I'm separating. I want to go to medical school. How did you find out what those next steps were?
Oh man, I had no idea.
Most people don't. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, to start with, I had no idea. I asked friends. I asked friends of friends. I sought out people who had gone on this journey and started this journey. And eventually, one of them was like, "Hey, there's this podcast called the Pre-Med Years." So that was one thing. And then just researching online as well, seeing the first steps, the prereqs that you have to get, which exact classes you need. And then pretty much I would call schools and ask them, "Hey, this is my goal. Do you have any resources for me, or can you point me in a direction?" So I really just went out and sought as many resources as I could find.
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of students aren't doing enough of, which seems kind of silly because we live in a day and age where there's so many resources, so many websites and podcasts now, and so much else, and yet students are still coming in naive to the whole process because they're not going out and finding the information. So you went out and you found that information. You reached out to schools. Looking back at your previous undergrad degree, did you do well enough that you weren't super concerned about your previous grades holding you back at all?
That was actually a concern. The grades, once I found out the kind of GPA and test scores you needed to get into medical school, that was a concern because originally my GPA was not that strong, and that was definitely a concern. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to do some hard work here to kind of catch up to make myself the most competitive applicant that I can be. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was a huge concern that my GPA was too low, and just knowing that, I just put my prior military training into practice and set a goal. I set timelines and sought out every resource that could help and work my butt off.
Do you think that because now you're working towards a goal, it was maybe easier for you? Maybe as a previous undergrad working in business degree, knowing that you kind of wanted to go into the military anyway, maybe you just didn't put enough effort into it, and so you were smart enough, you just weren't directed towards the right goal then.
Yeah, maybe that's one part of it. Having a specific, actionable, measurable goal mm-hmm. that you need, that you can kind of set your sights on.
A smart goal.
A smart goal, exactly. Yeah. But in addition to that, I'd had some training where, I learned a lot about myself, about discipline, about personal responsibility, and, the classic story of the military making you into a disciplined person. And that really helped me out. And it's just a lot, also just that time being in the military and doing some hard stuff. You just learn a lot about yourself and life, and you just become more responsible. And I think that was also another part of it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I wish more people would go into the military just to learn those skills of discipline and working towards a goal and teamwork and all of this other stuff that it's so invaluable in everyday life that the military has the potential to teach you.
Yeah, and I'm incredibly fortunate for those experiences. And not just the experiences, but, a part of it is just the guys that you work with. And I was really fortunate in that I was always surrounded by these guys who would it's just part of the training where we just push each other to be better, stronger, faster, smarter, and always being in an environment where you're being pushed to improve on a personal level, day in, day out. I'm incredibly thankful for those opportunities and experiences.
When you got out of the military, you separated, you become a civilian. What was the next step for you in deciding where to take classes, what classes to take? Do I do a formal postbac, a do-it-yourself postbac? Do I do a master's degree? How did you go about that process of figuring out what to do?
I think first and foremost, my first priority was location. I wanted to be located pretty close to family. That was number one. And then other priorities that would go into that were, of course, cost. How much would it cost to actually go out and start doing this? Because if I didn't get in the first time, I'd have to take more classes, and that would be even, that would add on to the cost of the whole endeavor. So in addition to that, I was a career changer. So I went on the AAMC's website, and they have a little postbac search engine. And so what I did was I looked at the state that I'm from and my hometown, and I saw which postbac programs were closest and compared cost, prices, and which ones are closest, and pretty much applied to all of them.
Okay. And you go through that process. What was it like, the process going through a postbac, now having gone through your undergrad, having gone through the military? What was that like, taking science classes potentially for the first time, at least rigorous ones, and a lot of them? What was that like, coming back, not being in the military, taking classes and having a sole focus on getting good grades?
Yeah, I didn't have a science background. So going into it, I thought I was just going to have to work, day and night studying, because I was going to be surrounded by people who had grown up taking, AP science courses in high school, and I was going to be completely outmatched in all my classes. But, the first thing I did was I found out so I went down all my class lists, and I found out contact information for the professors, and then through them I got the syllabus for the upcoming class. And then from that, I found out which resources we need, and pretty much about a month prior to the classes starting, I would go through and I'd actually kind of go through the textbooks and just kind of see what I could learn on my own before the classes even started, because I thought I would go in and have to fight for like a C or a B, because I had no science background, and I'm getting old, so stuff doesn't stay in the head, as long as it previously did when I was younger. So I pretty much tried to learn as much as I could before the class even started.
Yeah. which is something we had 3 or 4 weeks ago, having a guest on talking about study habits and study skills. And that's one of the first things she recommends is reading the material beforehand. Even if it's only 10 minutes of glancing through the material, you're going to be better off than a student who doesn't do that at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you were setting yourself up for success.
That's exactly what I did. And in the process of doing that, I found what worked for me and what didn't work for me. Did it work best for me to read through the entire text and highlight or make outlines, or did it work best to kind of skim through once and then read it over again and then try questions? And there's this whole, process of figuring out, what exactly works best for you in this certain subject. And it would differ for each subject. You wouldn't approach studying for physics in the same way that you'd approach studying for example, biology. It's a different, and figuring that out, taking the time before classes even start to figure that out, was really important to me. It's because I want to do well in these classes.
Yeah. And you ended up doing well in the classes. I
did.
And doing well in the process of classes and taking the MCAT. Let's talk about the application. As a non-traditional student, having a business background for your college degree, being a medic in the military, a lot of non-traditional students get to this point in the process with the applications of trying to figure out what the heck to say. Like, what do I talk about? How do I narrow down everything I've done? What do I focus on? How did you go about that process of telling your story?
Man, that was probably the hardest obstacle of this whole process so far, is just sitting down and putting pen to paper and writing about yourself. It was a huge challenge, and I would find myself not wanting. I'd sit down to write something, and I'd be like, "Oh man, this is so painful." So I would just come and just try to maybe write just a little story, or even just a brief little outline of what I want to talk about, and maybe jot down a couple sentences about a certain story I want to tell, and maybe just let that, and just stop for the day and just kind of let it simmer, like in the back of my mind, and then reapproach it the next day and maybe try a little bit more, or maybe try to write from a different perspective. Or if nothing was coming to me about that story, maybe write about a different story the next day, or just try to kind of not force it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Just kind of let it come to you. And because when you sit down and you try to write a story, it's hard, especially talking about yourself. But if you maybe revisit it a couple days later, maybe just by it simmering in your subconscious, maybe seeing things flesh out over a couple days. So that helped a lot. But I think brainstorming, outlining a couple different stories, and then just really putting in the work day by day and trying to write a little bit every day. That's all I could do, and that's all I did.
Yeah, that's good advice to take those breaks. I think a lot of students don't prioritize that when they're in the process of writing their personal statement. Is let me write a draft or write a couple paragraphs and put it aside and look at something else, and then come back to it with fresh eyes and maybe a little bit more reflection and think about things differently. I think a lot of students try to, and it's probably because they just don't plan well, and so they're trying to cram it in right at the very end, be like, okay, I have 3 hours before I want to submit, I need to write my personal statement, and they just cram it in a session or two, and they don't have that ability to look at things with fresh eyes and reflect on what they've written to think about if that's exactly what they want to write.
Yeah, that was the biggest point is, after you're writing it or while you're writing it, just it's such an introspective process. It forces you to think about your life and why you're doing things and motivations and your goals. And it really I think it's really helpful, and it's a great part of it. Even though it is challenging, but I think the rewards that you gain out of it are more than worth it.
Yeah. I remember looking at some of your early drafts of your personal statement, and you had a very common struggle of trying to sell yourself a little bit too much about how great of a teacher you were. You focused a lot on teaching, especially as a medic, other people, other countries' medics, what you were doing. What was that mindset shift for you of getting that feedback to say you're trying to sell yourself too much here? Just let's tell the story behind what's going on more.
Yeah, it's an easy mistake to make, and everybody's going to make it. Everybody's going to make some kind of mistake like that. And I think the important part is to just do that and just do your best at first to avoid it, but understand and have the self-awareness that you're probably going to make that mistake, and to be deliberate in your attempts to avoid making those mistakes as you go along in the editing process, and try to shift towards, you imagine an admissions committee member sitting in front of you, and you're pretty much telling them from the bottom of your heart, why do you want to be a physician? And if you were in a face-to-face conversation, you don't want to be having that salesman type pitch. It's not a natural thing that you do. So I think imagining yourself sitting across from an admissions committee person and just kind of explaining to them, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is the story why, and here's what happened in the story, and here's what I did, and here's what I learned. And I think that was the biggest conceptualization that helped.
Looking back now on having several interviews, having acceptances, how much of that success do you play into the story that you're able to tell in your application, and then connecting and telling more stories in your interviews?
A large part of it. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge because you have to have it. It helps you in telling your story in the interview to have a seamless, connected story that puts together all these different facets of your life and winds them into one narrative that's your story. That's what happened. And it's easier on you, it's easier on the interviewer, it's easier on people who look at your application to be like, so here's a story of this guy, and instead of being scattered all over the place, like I did this because of that, I did this because of that, it ties everything together, really. And it gives the person an easier time of just sitting down and looking at a person's application and seeing their motives and seeing their goals and giving them a way to tie everything together.
When you found yourself in your interview days, was there any pressure about your previous undergrad experience not doing well in your business undergrad, or was it more focused on just all the cool stuff you've done as a medic in the military?
Nobody brought up my undergrad. It didn't come up. It came up once because I was asked about any red flags, and that's what I mentioned. And then my interviewer said, "Oh, that happens. That's common. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
So it only came up once, and it wasn't even a big deal. But the majority of my interviewers wanted to talk about my experiences in the military and serving abroad. And it's easy to talk about that, and I love talking about that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, it's an experience that you had that you just light up about. And a lot of students are like, well, there's a lot of military people applying to medical school. I'm like, yeah, but your story is still going to be different. Just tell your story, and don't be afraid of that maybe being common, because it's your story, your experiences in the military are yours and yours alone. And everything that has led up to that point is what shapes who you are. And so I think students need to not be afraid of their stories, even if they may be common. They're still their own.
Yeah, and that's true of of everything. I'm not the first person with this background to apply to medical school. There's been plenty of guys and girls who have applied with the same experiences that I have, but it's just like any other form of art, or like books or movies or poetry. We stand on the shoulders of giants. So it's about the specific aspect of your story and the new interesting details that you can bring to the table.
What was the process like for you once you've interviewed, you have these conversations, the process of, okay, now I guess I need to wait and see if everything went okay? As somebody from the military side of things, it's hard to wait for that long. Everything has a purpose and a plan. And what do you mean you have to tell me? You're telling me I have to just sit here and do nothing? What was that like for you?
Oh, the hurry up and wait. Yeah. It was real. Yeah. You have to stay focused on something. For me, it was another job that I had. And I just went and buried myself into that, because you can't sit around all day and wait for the email to come. You'll drive yourself crazy. So you got to stay focused and invest yourself into something that's constructive and something that you want to do and that you find joy in.
You were lucky enough to get a lot of amazing acceptances. What was the process like for you to narrow down what school that you ultimately chose?
Again, it would be location to family. If not location to family, location maybe in some part of the country where I have a lot of friends, a lot of acquaintances, where I've spent a good amount of time and have some type of social support network. Another part of that is cost, because there's the private school and the public school, and I'm going to be applying for VA benefits as a military service member, and the VA doesn't pay for 100% of the private school. So the specific calculus and how that breaks down, that also comes into play. So finances do come into play as well. Mm-hmm. And then in addition to all that, it was what the school emphasizes and how I felt about the school and how I felt about the people at the school and specific curriculums and how the interview day went as well, and how I felt about everybody they interacted with.
Looking back on your interview days, what did you take note of to try to remember so that you could compare once you had acceptances? I tried
to make a little pros and cons list at the end of each interview day, and usually it would include some type of financial blurb, some type of location blurb. Was it gonna be snowy there? Was it gonna be like 40 degrees below zero there? Because I'm from California, and but I do like the cold. Another way I was going to narrow it down was location, of course, curriculum, the facilities, opportunities for research, opportunities for community service, just the general gestalt of the whole day. Did all the med students seem pretty happy, and how did all of the faculty seem? Just a general, gestalt of the day and the people.
What does the future hold for you?
I'm going to be a doctor.
Whoa there. You haven't even started yet. One step at a time. There's no guarantees here.
I'm going to go to medical school.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited for your journey into medical school and beyond. I know your experiences as a medic in the military are going to have a profound impact on your abilities starting out in your clinical rotations. Just the amount of experience that you've already had will hopefully help make you a better doctor and be able to help your classmates as you go on this journey.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm excited.
What words of wisdom do you have for the student out there who maybe is in the military right now and thinking that they want to get out and start medical school soon?
I would say reach out. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to your friends of friends. I would say seek out as many resources as you can find. I would say start now. Start taking some type of science class now, whether it's a physics class or maybe like an intro to chemistry class or even statistics or calculus class. Start taking something right now and prove to yourself that this is what you want to do and that you can do this. Prove that you have capability to yourself.
Looking at your application as an outsider, I'd go, oh, this was pretty easy for you. Good grades, good MCAT score, getting into great schools. What was the hardest thing for you going through this process?
The sacrifices.
What sacrifices?
There were times where my friends were like, hey, Justin, come out. We're going to go to the bar, or we're going to go on this camping trip, or we're going to go do this thing. And I have to be like, nope, sorry guys, got to study. Or there's the family events, time with family, time with friends, sacrifices, the long nights studying in the library instead of going out and having fun.
Yeah, I know that's something that I didn't do very well going through college, was the delayed gratification.
Delayed grat. Yep.
Yeah, focusing on what needed to be focused on right now. And I would go out and like, hey, it's Friday night. We're going out to the bar. Okay, don't go without me. That's what I would do. And it showed in my MCAT score, unfortunately. I vividly remember one of my friends in college, Forrest was his name, and he ended up crushing everything and getting early acceptance into the University of Florida program. I don't know what he's doing nowadays, but I vividly remember like trying to peer pressure him into coming out. Be like, you don't need to study for the MCAT anymore. Come on, let's come out. And he's like, no, I got to study. Like, nerd. But it works. Like, I definitely took the wrong approach to it, and the sacrifices are definitely real and are something that you have to be okay with. And maybe it's not sacrificing 100% of the time, but maybe 90% of the time, and you'll be way ahead of the game for most.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point. This whole time I've been working on balance, and it's hard. It's a challenge to find balance between maintaining that GPA or maintaining that strict study schedule for the MCAT and balancing it with work, but also balancing it with time for self-care, working out, eating right, getting enough sleep, spending time with friends and family, because you have to do that. You can't just put it all to the wayside and hard charge yourself towards 100% study work. You can't do that. That's unsustainable. So, yes, I made sacrifices, but at the same time, I found a way to balance it, and I still did. I had time to have fun. Fun times were had.
Do you have any ideas of specialties that you may be interested in?
Oh man, I'm just starting. I'm trying to keep my mind open. I have so much time ahead of me. But yes, I'm considering oncology. I love oncology. I'm considering emergency medicine. Considering maybe a surgical subspecialty like orthopedics. But at the same time, I'm trying to stay, wide open and open to new experiences and opportunities.
Lots of opportunities out there. Well, Justin, thanks for coming on the podcast, sharing your story, hopefully giving some encouragement and motivation to those service members and even civilian students out there who may hopefully get some motivation from your story.
Yeah, I hope it helped. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, so there you have it. Again, that was Justin, former special operations medic. Amazing story of success, amazing story of service, and really finding his way. I know a lot of you listening are military vets, are active duty military, so hopefully Justin's story will provide you with some motivation on your journey to medical school. I mentioned at the beginning how you can support me. Again, just spread awareness of this podcast. If you're looking at MCAT prep, whether it's MCAT full-length exams, you're looking at an MCAT course, or MCAT tutoring, Next Step Test Prep has been my go-to recommendation for many years. And that's because you guys tell me that it's one of the best out there. You love the course in the office hours, the live office hours it gives you. You love the full-length exams and how they are second best to the AAMC exams, which for full-length exams, second place is where you want to be. Obviously, first place will go to the people who write the test, and their tutoring is second to none. So you can use the promo code MSHQ everywhere to save some money on tutoring, on the course, or on their full-length exams. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the Pre-Med Years podcast.